Hi, this is Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us today for Live with Annie. As usual, we've started the stream a bit early to get everything set up and broadcasting properly to our various platforms. You can find a countdown clock on the screen showing how long it will be until we actually go live. While you wait, please connect with us and other viewers in the chat. Let us know where you are from and whether you are a new or longtime viewer. We'll see you live soon! Again for joining us for Live with Annie. We are so happy to have you with us today. While you wait for the program to start, we hope you'll enjoy the content playing on screen. There's so much inspiration, so take a moment to tell us what you love in the chat. Don't forget there is a countdown clock on the screen so you know how long until we go live. Annie again, reminding you that we'll be going live with this week's episode shortly. There is a countdown clock on the screen showing how much time is left. You've got just enough time to grab some water or beverage of your choice and a snack, and to connect with us in the chat. We'd love to hear what you've been working on this week. Again, it's Annie, back to remind you that we'll be starting this week's live very shortly. We've got a really fun episode planned for today, and we'll see you soon. Yeah.
We're on.
Hi, I'm Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us for episode number 41 of Season 2 of Live with Annie. Today we're going to be joined by our special guest, Natalie Barnes of Beyond the Reef, a pattern and design company. One of our favorite Windham Fabrics designers, we have made models using every one of Natalie's lines and have invited her to join us today to talk about the process of designing fabrics and quilts. Whether you are a regular viewer or this is your first time watching Live with Annie, we are so glad that you are here. We know there are lots and lots and lots of things you could be doing with this time, and the fact that you've made time to be with us really means a lot. So thank you. If you enjoy these episodes, please take a minute to follow us wherever you are watching. If you know someone else who you think might enjoy the information that we share, we'd also love it if you'd tell them about Live with Annie. The easiest way to do that is to tag them while you're watching, because that will take them directly to the episode so they can watch it too. And if tagging is new to you, all you need to do is type the @ symbol, follow that by the name that they use on that platform. You'll see their picture and name pop up so you can make sure you've got the right person. If you do, click on it, type a comment if you'd like, and submit it. Also, we really love reading your comments, so please be sure to interact with us throughout this presentation. Tell us what you think about what we're showing, share your tips and tricks, and tell us what projects you're working on. And be sure to add any questions you might have in the comments or chat, and we'll do our best to answer them before we close. Last week, we kicked off our annual Sew Pink initiative and shared a mini trunk show of patterns useful for those with medical needs, including tips for adapting specific ByAnnie patterns to fill some particular needs. If you missed that episode or want to watch it again, remember that you can find all the previous 93 episodes of Live with Annie on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or at ByAnnie.com. We will put up all the links to make them easy for you to find. I'm going to grab a quick drink of water before we get started. So today we are really excited to welcome a special guest to Live with Annie, Natalie Barnes of Beyond the Reef. Natalie started Beyond the Reef, a pattern and design company, one rainy North Shore morning on a lanai in Hanalei, Kauai, while drinking coffee with author Jill Marie Landis. As a little girl, Natalie had learned to sew, knit, and crochet from her grandmother. And after a successful career in the demanding commercial corporate interior design field in Los Angeles, Natalie decided it was time to live a new dream and put her talents to work in another area. And she has never looked back. Her first fabric line, Handmaker for Windham Fabrics, came out in fall 2016, and I remember being blown away by its beautiful colors and designs. Having always lived on the beach, Natalie draws her inspiration for color and design from the sea, the sky, and the land. These days, you will find Natalie in her studio in sunny Southern California or out and about with her dog Stitch. In addition to designing fabrics for both Windham Fabrics and Anthology Fabrics, Natalie also designs quilts, including writing, illustrating, and editing the patterns. She is a woman of many talents. Natalie's goal is to inspire, motivate, and create, and I am so thrilled to have her as a guest today. Please help me welcome Natalie Barnes.
Hi there. I figured no one would recognize me without my sunglasses. And I was loving, grooving to all of that good music you had on. You were showing all of the beautiful, beautiful projects that people are able to make. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. And Annie,
it is such a treat. We are so
it's a
glad
treat for me.
We're so glad that you made the time to be here. And I had to say, as I was pulling models to decorate the set today, it was like a little trip down memory lane as I admired all the different lines that we've used over these past, 6 years, I think? Yeah, ever since we used your debut collection, which was Handmaker, which I'm trying to look for. Actually, I don't think I had room on the table for Handmaker, so it's down below here. But ever since we've used Handmaker way back in 2016, we have made sure that we've asked for your fabric every single season. And so I'm pretty sure we've made models using every print line you've designed over those past 7 years, all the way from Handmaker to Our House. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. You are a perfect example of the great collaboration and the wonderful friendships that are developed in the quilting industry and in the quilting community as well. So I thank you for that, and for the great thing that you're doing this month, October. So Pink Initiative is such a great, great thing. And we have you to thank for that as well. So you're a model for what can be done in our industry if we all just stick together and work together.
Well, that is definitely what I think is the wonderful thing about the quilting industry, is that everybody works with each other. I got an email a couple days ago from a store owner who had borrowed a trunk show, and she was saying how much she appreciated it, how much it had increased her sales in her store. And she said, one thing that you really know is that if we win, you win. And it's so true. I mean, if we're all in this together, it's going to make all of us successful. And that just makes such a difference. So we just love using your fabrics because they have such beautiful, vibrant colors. They have such great designs. I have to admit, I was a little bit surprised when Windham sent us images of Natalie Barnes fabrics a couple years ago, and they were batiks. That was a big change for us, but we've really loved working with them too. And so that was part of the reason I wanted to invite you to come today, because I was really curious to know what took you down that different path and how the process of designing a batik fabric is different from the process of designing a cotton print fabric. So I'm just going to turn things over to you. We'd love to hear more about what goes into developing a line of fabric using those, and a little bit more about your story. So take it away, Natalie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And hello to all of you out there. Anything you want to say, I understand that there's a feed that you can ask questions to Annie and her team. But I just want to thank you once again for allowing me to enter into your home and allowing me to be a part of your quilting journey. You know, I got started making samples actually for Windham, and got to know the team. And that one thing led to another, and I asked them if I could submit to them something that I had come up with, and that was the original that you just showed, Annie. But I have to say, one of the most commonly asked questions that I get is, how long does it take to design a line of fabrics? And we're in print right now, not talking about batiks, but you know, the funny thing is that I am not able to really do a linear process, if you will, in terms of designing fabrics. I think that designing fabrics is really a walk with the dog, stopping to look at how maybe the cracks in the sidewalk are coming together, and maybe something else goes on top of that, and something else goes on top of that. Or taking a look, yesterday we had an incredible thunderstorm, and I happened to be out on the bay, and I looked at the water on the bay, and I wasn't on the water. No worries about that. Thunderstorm danger there. But I was just looking at how all the rain, when it was really big drops, was making the water just shimmer. And so I really say, I think that fabric design is something that is a way of life. It's a constant. I may take a photograph of a blossom and then come home and draw it. So I have tons of notebooks that are filled with sketches of things, and literally just all the way through, in terms of the good and the bad and the ugly, that are contained in these sketchbooks. And so these are an ongoing thing for me. And same with pattern. If I come up with a pattern, or if I'm just doodling through something, and this one again is just filled with things that are just thoughts and images that I come across. So it's very hard to say, for me, everybody's process is different, but for Natalie Barnes of Beyond the Reef, it's really not a linear process. It's sort of zigzagging along and ending up with a whole lifetime full of ideas. I think also when you think about designing a line of fabrics, there are a lot of people that have classes. There are a lot of people that can teach you process in terms of how to do it mechanically on your computer. But I think you can see that most of my process is either pen and ink or graphite pens and pencils. And so I'm always carrying this around with me and throwing a notebook in my bag wherever I go. Ultimately, those get cleaned up. Those images get cleaned up, and then they get put into the computer. I happen to work in Illustrator, and I know a lot of people work in Photoshop. Annie, you mentioned color, and I am no stranger to color. I really love a lot of different colors, and I work in Pantone and then convert that into the computer and then start getting to work. I think one of the things to remember also in terms of, in terms of inspiration, is that no matter the time and no matter the inspiration, it's really something that once you decide to put a line of fabrics together, that you decide on, for me, and for maybe any project, you decide on a theme. Let's say you just want to, I'm going to backtrack here a little bit. Let's say you want to make a quilt for someone. I think it's important to have a theme for that as well. You want to give somebody a gift. You want to say, gosh, I know Annie, I know where she lives, I know that she likes certain things, and so I'm going to come up with building sort of a design statement around what I want to make for her. And you can use this when you're in your studio and when you're making projects for other people as well. Same thing goes with designing a fabric line. This happens to be Our House Fabrics, which I think you'll find in shops now. But this was literally Our House in terms of a real 70s vibe, a real going to see the, a band at a high school, or going going back in time and looking at those paisleys, anything like that. And so a theme was born, and then the rest of the work was able to be done with the line using that theme as a constant thread throughout the whole thing. Ultimately, I send fabrics to a lot of girlfriends and a lot of other people in the industry, like Annie, who make samples. And those samples go into what Windham calls a lookbook. A lot of people you'll see have these in their, like no matter who the manufacturer is, you're going to find something like this that goes out to sales reps. And this is filled with all sorts of projects that people have made that I'm so thankful for. And this ends up being a sales tool while Windham Fabrics is selling fabrics. In the meantime, however, this is a great resource for you, because not only are there great projects in here, but all of the yardage requirements are in here as well. And this is posted on Windham's website. So this is a great tool for you, whether it's Windham or any other fabric that you're interested in. Go to that company's website and see what tools they have for you. This, however, is all still built on the theme of Our House. You'll notice a guitar sitting here, and this sort of a project was, again, in the theme of Our House and that sort of flashback 70s vintage type of project. Once all of this is really completed, I think a designer's project is just beginning, because so much of designing fabric includes those relationships with people, those relationships with other designers, the cross-marketing that occurs. You all probably see a lot of social media. You see a lot of feeds, you see a lot of videos, and all of those are part and parcel of the production of designing a fabric line, right? It doesn't just stop once the lookbook is done and you don't go off to the beach to go paddling, right? It seems like it, but that's really not the case. There's a lot of behind the scenes work, and Annie you do a great job in that as well. The cross promotion and the supporting of that theme all the way through is really lovely. And that is a lot of coordination with, let's say you go to a magazine as a consumer and you see fabrics or you see a project. All of that was done months, if not almost a year in advance. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. And I thank the team at Windham. They're really fabulous to work with, and they've given me great opportunities. I have to tell you a little story, Annie, since you brought up that first line of fabrics. When I first presented to Windham, I asked if I could meet with them. And I met with the art director at that time. Excuse me. She reviewed everything. And then she called in the person that was in charge of the bridge between Windham and the production team and the manufacturing, and he came in and he talked a little bit. And the two of them stood over to the side and talked a little bit. And I was standing in front of this big, long table with all of my samples and everything. And all, you know, I brought a portfolio, and so everything was all laid out on this big, long table. And they both came back and they said, well, we think we can go ahead and call the owner of the fabric company, and he'll take a look at it and see if he wants to work with you. And so he came in and he looked at everything, and the three of them talked, and I was just standing there. You know, I was a fly on the wall, and I was all dressed up, and I had my real shoes on instead of tennis shoes. And, you know, I was there, and they kept talking amongst each other. In the meantime, there was a gentleman who was a part of the accounting team that was at the end of the table. He was doing another project, but he happened to be in the room. And after they moved things around a little bit and shuffled things and showed how certain things would play well together and how they could develop a line out of what I had shown them, the president of the company stood up, took a step back, and he said, "We're done here." And I had to grab the table. I had no idea what he meant by that. And the man that was sitting at the end of the table later on told me, he said, my face just went white, and I just had this look on my face. I've never had a poker face before. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he said, everything's fine here. We're done. This could work as a complete line, and we'd like to, you know, we'd like to print this. We'd like to present this to our customers. But there was a moment there. I mean, I gotta tell you, I was like, whew. So that first line really comes with a lot of stories and a lot of really good, fond memories about the way I started with print. Windham purchased Anthology Batik Fabrics at some point. And one day, that same person who said, we're done here, who I became a little bit more familiar with and became aware of their personality, said, how would you like to do a designer line of batiks? And so that was my first opportunity to work in batik. I have to tell you that in terms of looking at batiks, which I'm going to show you here, in comparison to, say, whatever you would do in working for a printed line of fabrics, that let me back up and say, when I see a printed line of fabrics that I've designed, I can really say, gosh, I designed this. This is something that I did. I recognize everything that sales team does. I recognize everything that the marketing team does. And I recognize everything that all of my friends and all of my colleagues in the industry do. But when I look at a batik, it's very difficult for me to say, oh yes, I designed this. Because batik fabrics, and I know, Annie, that you have had other people come on your live show that have done more detailed explanation about how batiks are actually made. But when I work on the designs for a batik fabric, I really realized that it is a collaboration, both with Maisha Williams at Anthology Batik Fabrics, or Anthology Fabrics, and all of the artisans that are in Bali and that are in Indonesia as well. This truly is, I think, when you see a batik fabric, you have to realize that it has been touched by so many different hands, and it is literally a handmade product. I mean, and once the graze goods are delivered to them and they start this process, it's really completely handmade. Yes, this is a design that I came up with, and the designs are actually then created on what is called a chop, and it's TJAP. I think I've got that correct. And this is what is used for the resist. Let me see if I can't get the light to hit this correctly. So this was a drawing that I did. It then gets sent to the team in Bali, the people that are making all of this by hand. And this is actually made out of metal. It's made, I believe, out of copper. And this is used to dip into wax and then be placed onto the fabric, wax, fabric, all the way along to create that wax resist. And it's just amazing to me that when you go to your local quilt shop, or when you go to your favorite retailer, or when something shows up in your mailbox, that it was white fabric that was then designed in terms of a background. And in reality, this dark navy blue is the first background. It was then hand stamped, and then the process continued to be able to create this lovely piece of fabric. So it's very difficult for me to say, oh yes, I designed this fabric, because all of the detail that goes into the texture and the different colors and the layering of the colors is really something that happens with so many other people touching this. So please remember that next time you go out and you take a look at a batik fabric. It's really wonderful. This happens to be, where am I here? This one happens to be a project that was done by one of my Modern Quilt Guild girlfriends. This is a pattern by Robin Pickens called Mod Quilt Box. And Alicia from the Long Beach Modern Quilt Guild helped by making this for me for the lookbook. And you will find the same concept with this line, which is just coming out, I think, towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, called Island Garden. And so, oh, I take it back. It's going to ship end of November, maybe December here. So once again, you'll still find all of the information in this lookbook. All of the detailed information is going to be right here for you whenever you're looking for a line of fabrics. But it really is a big jump to go from actually going from everything done on the computer to everything being done really by way of communication between Maisha and her team in Bali or in Indonesia. I feel like I'm so thankful to get to be a part of that. I have a new line of fabrics that's coming out. Also, I just wanted to tell you, because you, Annie, you mentioned that I'm really a lover of color, and that is true. But I actually put together a line of fabrics called Maker's Collage that's on sale now, but won't be in shops until later on. And it's black, whites, and grays. And I think all of you know that no matter what line of fabric I put together, I'm always thinking like a quilter. And that is giving you a lot of these neutrals and low volume backgrounds that you can use for your projects. And so as a result of that, I thought, gosh, why not just do a whole line of those low volumes? And so, Annie, you may be talking about color, but in this case, it's black, white, and gray. This is actually a beautiful project that was done by Natalie Crabtree. And this is called Mix and Mingle, I think is what the name of this pattern is. So I think you can see that even though as a pattern designer myself, I, of course, enjoy that process as well. but I'm really passionate about designing fabrics and bringing really usable fabrics into the mix for your customers, Annie, or for Natalie Crabtree's customers, or Robin Pickens' customers. And I do enjoy my own. I feel like I've had one big giant run-on sentence here. I haven't stopped at all, have I? Let me take a glass of water just for a minute, and then I'll get into that last comment. I really enjoy designing quilts because I really like making quilts, of course. I started out as a quilter, but I really like designing with other people's patterns as well. And I think there are a couple of photos in the stream that will be coming up that are good examples of where my inspiration comes from for quilt patterns as well. Annie, I know that you probably have a lot of inspiration that you get from different bags and different projects that you're going to use that are from life. Again, it's where does your inspiration come from? I think this that's up on the screen right now is going to make a great, block, because I can see there's a lot of geometry going on right here. And then there are these two little circles over here that are sitting on this stripe. And I think this is going to be something that I'll be working with next for a Beyond the Reef pattern, as an example. The other one is one evening we were out. I have a friend that I go out every once in a while with for sushi, and we sat at the table, and this presented itself in front of me after we had finished eating, and I sort of got everything lined up and straightened and in a box, and I thought, this is going to be one of my next projects as well. And I don't know what we're going to call it, so if any of you have any ideas for either of the names of those two asymmetrical blocks for the quilt that's coming up, the quilt design that's coming up, I would appreciate it. So to go back to the very first thing that we talked about, which is where do designs come from, I would have to say, I think you can see from both of those examples, it's really just a matter of life and living and being open to everything that's around you. Color for sure, or not color for sure. I guess I did that backwards. But it's a matter of just staying open and being excited about what you're seeing and using that inspiration because it's all around you wherever you go. I don't know if there are questions out there, Annie, if anybody has chimed in, but I thought I would stop for a minute and ask about that, and then see if anybody else wants to see anything that I've shown a second time. That was one big, long, run-on sentence.
Hey, it was excellent. I really enjoyed hearing your story and how you take a thought from your head or from something that you've seen and take it all the way to the fabric that we get for sewing. One question that I had as I was listening is, you seem to have quite a few fabrics in most of your lines. Is there kind of a rule of thumb that you use when you're designing a line as to, I want this many lights, this many mediums, this many darks, I want, these color, because sometimes you have the same design but in several colorways. How is that decision made? Is that something that you propose, or does the fabric company look at it and say, we want to do it to go with all these other fabrics that we're doing too?
Well, if I'm doing my job well, hopefully they don't have to make too many of those adjustments. I'm always approaching things as a quilter. So as an example, when you look at our house, you'll see that there are things that will allow you to make contrast, whether it's between a large scale print and a small scale print, right? This is contrast between these two elements here. Or whether it's contrast in value, so contrast in scale or contrast in value. As an example, you've got, not these two, but you've got a print here and a print here, so that you can use these to make a graphic design, which is really what we're doing with quilting, right? Is creating contrast so that you can see that design. And so ultimately, I'm trying to present a line that has all of that so that they don't have to do a lot of work, and that I have the opportunity to give all of the customers enough that they can create a project. The other thing is that I'm really try to concentrate, since I'm working towards making quilts, I'm really trying to concentrate on scale, like I just said, where you've got some small prints, some medium prints, and then sometimes some large prints. Or in the case of the backing that went with this, a very large scale print. So scale matters. In this, again, for our house, the interesting thing that caught my eye while I was designing this, and while I was in that 70s mode, and when I was in that 70s moment, for me, I was making a lot of my own garments when I was around during the 70s. And I know some of you just think that Annie and I were just born in the late 70s, but really we were making clothes and making quilts back then. But so a lot of, I'm glad everybody's laughing at that one. So a lot of the designs that I presented, I wanted to be able to have crossover into garment. And this is a perfect example of that. I thought this was like going to be a great men's Western shirt with pearl snaps and things like that. And so really it was a matter of small, medium, and large scale, a matter of contrast, and what do you need to make a quilt. The second part, which you asked about, which is quantity, how many items are in, or how many different SKUs are in a line of fabrics. And I think that is where the fabric company really does come into play, because they have all the information in terms of sales and what people are purchasing, how many different things people are trying to get into their shops. For me, the quantity is, do I have enough variation in this line to be able to make a quilt? A quilt. I keep going backwards. So if you look at this as an example for batiks, it's a matter of how many different colors, how many different options. If we want to make something very controlled, or if we want to make something really scrappy, is there going to be enough in that line as a standalone line to make up something interesting? So again, contrast in value, contrast in scale. The number really depends on sales, but also depends on what can you make with this many pieces of fabric. And so all of that comes into play. And that's the great working relationship, working with Windham Fabrics and working with their team from Anthology. All of that information is really a great back and forth and a give and take between them and between me as a designer. And I appreciate that so much. Yeah, I think it gives me an opportunity to present better projects and better fabric designs to them, whether it be batik or not. And Annie, I want to say one thing. I know that most people design in a line, but I have to say that as an example, nobody does this better than a designer that we all know, which is Edita of Laundry Basket. Throw your batiks in with your prints. I mean, I know that it's a different weave and it's a different substrate, but ultimately I think it's going to be fine. And if you look at this, you know, if you look at what's going on over here and what's going on here, any of these would really play very well together. So I would urge you to mix things up. One of the other things, I'm going to dip down here for a minute. One of the other things is there's no reason why you can't take your batiks and make a really traditional project out of them as well. And your bags and some of your projects are just stunning out of batiks, as well as the prints that you choose. So it's okay to break the rules sometimes and mix things up. You know, use modern prints for traditional quilts, or use batiks and prints, or, you know, sky's the limit when you're doing that. So if there's not something in a line that you already have in a specific line of fabrics, pull something else out and try it, you know. And not everything works out, but at least you tried, and at least you got to see, hey, is this going to work? Is this going to? So that's the encourager in me, you know. Try a lot of things and just enjoy the process. And if some of them end up in the trash can, that's okay too. I mean, I know fabric is expensive these days, but you know, just make a sample block. And then if you don't like that sample block, then use it to make, what's the pattern that I love of yours? The bag that opens, that has the rounded top. Do you call that a clam?
Just in case, or clam up. Yeah. Clam
up. Yes. That's the one I was thinking of. So you can always use those blocks that you did a test with that you decided you didn't like. Some other girlfriend will like that.
Amen. That is so
I hope
true.
that answers
and
the question.
That really did. And you know, the thing that I have noticed too, your theme has been home and, you know, handmaker and that kind of throughout. And the fabrics work. You know, I could take something from this original line and mix it with your Mary and Maud and add it to, you know, this more recent one, and they all go together really well because you've done such a great job of coordinating them and keeping with that theme. And, you know, we had fun. We don't do a whole lot with the low volume ones just because we like things that pop. You know, if we're going to put them in the booth or we're going to put them in pictures, we like the bright colors. But, you know, for a house, you might want something a little more muted. So we made this set to go on the side of the sofa or the side of the bed, you know, with all the pockets and things. And those low volume ones work fabulously for that, or for the linings of things. So yeah, we really appreciate that you've got that broad range and all of the lights and darks and stuff too. So.
Can you hold up that gray one more time?
Is that the line that you happen to have there, the design? This one right here. Yeah, how funny.
This is it, yeah. Paper, right.
Yeah,
right.
I really loved that one. I thought that was so fun. And all of your quilts, the one that I remember seeing, and I want to remind people to be sure to go to the WindhamFabrics.com site and search for Natalie's fabrics and look through the lookbooks. But you had a fabric called Hang 10 that starts with the really bright and then it dissolves kind of into the white, black and whites. That is just fabulous. So is that a pattern that you designed, or whose design is that?
Hang 10 is a Beyond the Reef pattern, yes, and I did design that. And it's really funny because when I originally designed it, it was meant for 10-inch squares. So it was sort of a pre-cut type of a pattern. And one day I just got a bunch of scraps out and I started working with it on the design wall. And I just went from light to dark with all the different pieces. And it turned out to be really a layout that everybody liked. And it was fun to do. I have to say, it's slow going. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart to try and move all those pieces around. And speaking of lots of blocks that either got torn apart and re-sewn or got thrown into the scrap bag, that was a project for that. But that was really fun. Hang 10 is a fun project. It's a nice pattern. Thank you for saying so. I appreciate
it's
that.
Great. We had just a couple of questions, and both of them pertain to the two quilts that you have hanging behind you. Could you say the names of those again and the names of the designers?
Absolutely. This line of fabrics, I think you already put up in terms of the information, but this is Mix and Mingle, and it's by Natalie Crabtree. And this is actually being sold by Windham also as a kit. So you might see kits of this already pre-kitted for you in some of your retailers' shops. I will tell you also, if you are ever looking for a fabric, or if you're trying to figure out who might be carrying a fabric, Windham's website is really good about that. You can click on a specific line of fabrics, or if you know the name, so that this is Maker's Collage as an example, you can go into that. And this is, okay, another run-on sentence, but this is a perfect example of what great resources these websites are. You can go onto Windham's website, you can click Maker's Collage, it'll come up, and it will tell you which shops are carrying those products.
Oh, that's
And so
nice.
if you're looking for this, or if you're looking for this kit, you might be able to find it that way, or through Natalie Crabtree. This one is Robin Pickens, and this is Mod Quilt. Oh, I had it and I lost it. It's Mod Flower Box. Let me double check. Don't want to misquote anybody. See, even I have to look at this. Mod Flower Box. Mod Flower Box. And of course, all of the requirements for the yardage are in here as well.
That's fabulous.
So, yeah, that's Robin Pickens. You know, the other thing is that this line of fabrics I used as my project for the So Pink initiative. I used your nesting baskets. I always want to call them boxes, but boxes are square and these are round. The nesting baskets, and it was great because, as you mentioned, home dec, sometimes you don't want something really vibrant unless you plan for it in your home. And so it really worked out to have those nesting baskets, done in a neutral. And I just love them. So thank you so much. You always have great product, great projects, and everything that you need to make that project too, Annie. And I just think that's such a good recipe.
That's great. I have one other question here about the quilts that you showed. Someone asked if you could show that double wedding ring quilt again, and they wanted to know a little bit more about that quilt. So is that a pattern, or is that just one made from an older pattern?
This is actually something that my friend Jane St. Pierre made for me, and we used Victoria Finley Wolf's templates for this. Actually, they're rulers, I think. And so that's what this was made from. And I know the next question you're going to ask me is what size, and I'll have to look that up and get back to whoever is asking. But this is literally just scrappy. You can see all the low volume. So as an example, we were talking about what to put into a line. Even for the batiks, this is Island Garden, which is coming out November, December. But even for the batiks, you'll see there are a lot of different low volume prints here, and then a lot of colors, so you have some contrast there. But this is Island Garden by Anthology Fabrics, and this was made by Jane St. Pierre. All of the quilts that you see are quilted by Teresa Silva. And
Teresa does a fabulous job.
Yeah, she does beautiful work, doesn't she? And then the templates were Victoria Finley Wolf.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, because that is really lovely. And I can see that in a modern house or a traditional house, either one. It's just great. There were some suggestions for names for your quilt made with the sushi plates. And someone said, should she? Let me get mine. You're going to write it down? Okay.
Of course I'm going to write it down. Okay, ready?
I'm not sure this has the whole line on it, but it looks like should she or shouldn't she? And then it was just call it bento box, which is the one I thought of. And then someone said sushi on my mind. So those are all great ideas. All right, there was one other question. Tell us about a failure or a design that didn't work out. Have you had any fabric designs that you thought were going to be fabulous and you just quit doing them before you ever submitted them? Or
I just like with my sewing and with my quilting, and even with my fabric, not with my fabric, but with my pattern designs, I subscribe to the Babe Ruth theory, and that means that a lot of things never get through the door. That's why I have so many of these books and so much that I do on paper. And a lot of times you'll know during the process, or let me just say, I know during the process, if I am doing square peg round hole and I'm trying and trying and trying and something just isn't working, I will usually finish it. I may not show it. Sometimes I'll show it so that there's something to reject, so that there's something to delete in a line. But most of the times, I sort of know. This is a perfect example. This has never been put on anything. It's Queen Anne's lace. Many of you know this, or have, know what this looks like in the field. And while I love the Queen Anne's lace, and while I love the images, it's directional. And you'll notice in a lot of fabrics, they try and be non-directional, not always up or always down or always left, right. They try to be sort of a mix so that when you cut into them, you don't have to worry about this, right? This is a perfect example. I've never used this. There's another one in here that is, I don't know if I can find it quickly enough, but there's another one in here that I absolutely love, and it's I'll show you what it is. Let me grab this. These are these beautiful, beautiful bookends that were my Aunt Laura's. My Aunt Laura would probably be well into her hundreds by now, in her lifetime. And I thought this concept of having this drooping landscape coming out of this pot was just beautiful. And I've tried and tried and tried to emulate this, and it's never worked out. And it's in one of these books somewhere, so I go for the Babe Ruth approach. Just keep trying, keep working. I think Malcolm Gladwell also calls it the 10,000 hours, excuse me, where you just have to keep going, keep trying, keep working on things. And not everything you produce is going to be 100%. I think that's the thing that everybody talks about with social media, is that we only see the pretty. You don't see the stack of yuck that you had to trod through to get to the pretty. So
yep. And that is so true. It's the same thing in designing a pattern. When we get ready to design a new pattern, we first make a few of them just out of soft and stable, and to see sizing and all that kind of stuff. And then we bring in fabric, because it's totally different sewing it with fabric than it is with just soft and stable. But we'll go through several before we get to what the final one is. And people don't always realize all those steps that go into it. So thank you so much for sharing that, because that is so true and so interesting, and I really loved hearing all of that process. And I have to say how much I, as a pattern maker and a model sewer, appreciate having designs where you've put thought into those directions, so that either it's very obvious that it's one way, or that it can go any way, because it really does make it so much easier when you get started sewing to be able to know that it works either way, and you don't have to pay so much careful attention as you're sewing. So thank you. Go ahead.
I think also one of the things that you really bring to all of your customers with all of the samples that you're making is you bring them an awareness of what types of fabric you can use on what types of models, or what types of bodies, if you will. Large scale prints, small scale prints, and what's working with each of your projects. And that's invaluable also. And I'm sure you have a lot of lessons already, your life lessons for what's going to work and what isn't. And that's wonderful that you share that, because all of your customers end up with great projects as a result of that. So thank you so much. And thank you for having me. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Well, we are so glad that you joined us today. I know that I loved hearing about what you've done, and I know our customers have too. So thank you for sharing that with us, and keep on designing, because we love working with your fabrics. We love seeing what you do. We love the thought that you put into it and the care that you put into it. So keep it up, and we'll hope to see you again. I know you're not planning to go to Houston this year, but maybe we'll see you again somewhere along the way soon. So thank you for being with us today. And just to remind people that are watching, if you've got questions that we didn't get answered, I'm sure Natalie will go on and answer them on Facebook or on YouTube. Also, if you have other questions that we didn't get to, be sure to email us at info@ByAnnie, and if they're not ones we can answer, we'll forward them to Natalie and get them to her that way as well. So I know there was one question that came through about the strap on Out and About, and frankly, I don't have in my mind the technique right away, so it's going to have to be one that I'm going to have to answer either next week or in some pictures that I can send somebody. So if you were the person who asked that question, please email it to info@ByAnnie, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you there. So again, Natalie, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your talents, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you again. I'm off. Where's that music?
I love those sunglasses. That's great. All right, I hope you all enjoyed Natalie's presentation and learning a bit about what goes into designing and producing all these gorgeous fabrics. I loved the fact that she said that not everything works out, because I think we can all relate to that. Sometimes what we think is going to be the perfect fabric choices or the perfect zipper choice for something doesn't always work the way we intended. So that's a life lesson and something to move on from. As always, remember to ask for any of the patterns and fabrics that we showcase today at your local quilt shop, because those shops are such an important part of our sewing communities, and it's up to all of us to keep them strong and vibrant. If they don't have these products, they can certainly get them from their favorite distributor, from their favorite fabric company, Windham, of course, in this case, or from us. And if they're patterns they're looking for or ByAnnie products, we're happy to set up wholesale accounts for them. So just ask them to contact us for more information. All right, we want to move on now to a few announcements. Last week we launched our Sew Pink initiative, and we talked about the blog hop that we're going to have going throughout the month of October. It's been going strong this week, so be sure to go to our website and check it out. Since last week's live, we have had posts from a lot of talented makers. So on Thursday, which was October 6th, the Fat Quarter Shop shared some information about Lori Holt's awesome support group quilt and her cross-stitch pattern that's made along the same lines, as well as the quilt along and the stitch along that they're holding to go with their fundraiser. So those patterns are really a sweet nod to how good undergarments are like good friends. They show up during hard times to uplift and support each other. And I just love that little quilt. So the Fat Quarter Shop invites us all to take the plunge with them into this sew-along to give breast cancer awareness the full coverage that it needs. I thought was all really clever and hope that you will check it out. So be sure to check out their blog to get all the details about the quilt and the sew-along too. Then on October 7th, our good friend Angela Bowman at Sewfinity.com shared a beautiful Glow and Go Essentials wrap-in bag that she made in a pink ombre style. And Angela says, I love solid fabrics, I'm a fan of ombre, and I enjoy combining modern patchwork and quilting with Annie's patterns. Adding a super sweet small scale floral from my stash makes it super fresh. And I was excited to learn that Sewfinity now offers fat quarter cuts of all their fabrics. So that means that you now have a new source for hundreds of colors of fat quarters. And Angela said that was a ton of work to get together, but they are so excited to have that, and I am too. So be sure and check out Angela's blog post. Then on Monday of this week, which was October 10th, the amazing Teresa Coates of Windham Fabrics shared a mastectomy pillow pattern and a reminder of how one person can make a big difference. I really loved reading the touching story of Jennifer Roney, who donated 52 of these pillows to St. Vincent's Hospital in Portland, Oregon. And the pillows and words of encouragement and support from Jennifer, who is also a breast cancer survivor, really had to mean so much to each of the people who received one of those pillows. And it was a really great reminder that whether we donate monetarily or in service, we can all really make a difference in the lives of those who are affected by breast cancer and other diseases. Yesterday, our guest Natalie Barnes shared some great nesting baskets that she made using our nesting baskets pattern and her new line Maker's Collage that will be coming out soon. So those black, white, and gray low volume prints are just the right scale and value for your patterns, your quilt patterns and designs. As we said, they're also really fabulous for home deck designs like those nesting baskets. And I think Natalie is planning to do a video tutorial, so be sure and check that out as well. And then today, Jessica and the team at Sally Tomato incorporated a brand new pattern called Walk, Don't Run from their mini pattern series to bring encouragement and hopefulness to those who may be going through treatments now or to breast cancer survivors. So they designed a lanyard and key fob pattern that allows you to keep your important items close and within reach. So you can attach items like your keys, an ID holder, novelty keychains, or even clip a tassel cap to the key fob hardware. I really loved seeing all the creativity and variety from these awesome makers, and I really appreciate their generosity in helping us spread awareness of breast cancer and steps that we can all take to make sure that we're taking care of that in time. So be sure to check out all of this week's blog posts, visit their websites, and stay tuned for what's coming up in the coming days. Also, don't forget that we added a special category to our monthly photo contest that's going to be part of our So Pink celebration. So in addition to our regular monthly photo contest prizes, we are going to have an additional So Pink award. So one participant in our monthly photo contest will be selected to receive a $50 coupon to be used at ByAnnie, and we'll also give away a number of $15 coupons to other wonderful So Pink entrants. And we'll do that in both the months of October and November, so be sure to submit your projects soon. Finally, we have again joined forces with the Fat Quarter Shop to promote a fundraiser with the goal of raising $20,000 to donate to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. So we're kind of in a little friendly competition with them. The goal is to raise $20,000. We set our team's goal at $5,000. Well, as of today, the Fat Quarter team has raised almost $9,000 in donations, and the ByAnnie team is only at about $300. So we have a really long way to go to meet our goal. So we're asking you if you'll please consider donating to this worthwhile cause and helping us in our competition with the Fat Quarter team. If each person who watches these episodes or visits the blogs gave just $1, it would add up to a lot pretty quickly. And remember that whatever you donate, ByAnnie.com is going to match. So if you donate $1, it'll end up being a $2 contribution to the Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation. So please help us with that, and we will again put up the link to make it easy for you to participate. All right, before we close, we want to do our weekly featured local quilt shop. And this is something that we do every year. We have a local quilt shop contest. We ask people to vote for their favorite shop during the contest, and then throughout the year, to keep the support going, we share some of those comments that were made during the contest. So this week, we are traveling to Lowell, North Carolina, to a store called So Much Fun. So Much Fun is a team of knowledgeable and enthusiastic individuals who are eager to share their passion for sewing. They offer a wide variety of classes, quilting, home deck, garment Boy, my mouth fell over each other. Garment construction, heirloom and beginning sewing. And they say our goal is for you to experience the joy of using your machine to express your creativity. In the words of one of our customers, at So Much Fun, you're not just selling machines, you're promoting a way of life. I loved that. So Much Fun is an authorized Bernina service center, and their technicians have experience with Bernina and know how much your machine means to you. So when you take your machine to them, you know that they are going to treat it with loving attention. The store will be hosting Kay Fassett and Brandon Mabley on October 16th, 17th, and 18th. And on the 19th, they are going to have a sit and sew on the new Kay Special Edition Bernina machines. What fun that is going to be. So customers in this year's contest really raved about the store's staff and selection. Lenny said, "The selection is amazing, but most important, the women who work there encourage you no matter your skill level. They are wonderful." And Melissa, too, praised the people, saying, "The employees are always so helpful, they're never rushed, and I always leave with a smile on my face." And Hope wrote, "So Much Fun has a good selection of all fabric lines. They are willing to help if you need, or they just let you touch their fabrics." In 2017, I stopped here while heading to Georgia. I was looking at their sewing machine section. I asked for help with what machine would fit my needs, and the clerk told me the differences between two Bernina machines. I was ready to buy on the spot because I felt the price was fair. But when she found out I lived in Georgia, the clerk made the suggestion that I buy from my local store so I could be closer to have it serviced. She even gave me all the paperwork to take with me. And I thought that was really the sign of a good dealer who wants to make sure that you're getting what's best for you, even if it's at the expense of a sale that she may have made. So that was a great story to share. Remember that So Much Fun is going to have a ByAnnie trunk show on display throughout the full month of October, so be sure to stop in and check it out and let them know that Annie sent you. And we want to say thank you again to everyone who joined us today. We are going to be back next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time with another fun episode of Live with Annie, when we will be joined by our guest Edith Min, who is the founder of Renaissance Ribbons. I know you are going to love hearing the story of how Edith got into the ribbon business, and that you're going to be inspired by the projects that can be made using her gorgeous ribbons, webbings, and trims. So be sure to join us then, and until then, happy stitching!